Everyone, Homage is back. Homage is back. Episode 46. I'm here with my friend Olivia Janssen. Olivia, welcome to Homage. I know we've been talking about it. This one is a really unique episode, everyone. We've had really good conversations. We've actually gotten to the point where we're trading ancestry.com, like where we're from and things like that, which is kind of funny. Olivia, welcome to the show. I can't believe we're on episode 46. I'm going to start and then I'm going to let you take it away because
awesome.
The relationship that Olivia and I have begun with Dan literally started like a month ago, and it was just through the power of LinkedIn. And like honestly, it's the power of curiosity. It's the power of like, hey, there are people in your network that you don't know, but very quickly you can get to know them. Again, Dan and I have had the wonderful privilege of having lunch with Olivia, getting to know her a little bit. I think for all the listeners that are going to be tuning in, similar to like Zinka and Charlene from DSM, it's a really cool story because Olivia right now is balancing being a new mom or being a younger mom, balancing her career and finding that like balance in life as to what she wants to do, where she's at. So Olivia, I want to welcome you to the show. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Dissimilar to me, Olivia is a over preparer. And as everybody who knows me, I'm a wildly under preparer and just kind of riff off the cuff. But tell everybody a little bit about yourself. And we'll get into the narrative a little bit, but I'm turning it over to you. Welcome to Homage.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And honestly, it's so awesome to be part of this. I've never done anything like this before. And like you shared, I generally am somebody who over prepares. And as you and I talked about this, I'll admit, I had asked you, what should I do? What question should I be prepared to answer? And you just kind of encouraged me to be myself. And I think you wrote in all caps, just be you. And I'm going with that today. So I haven't prepared anything. I'm just talking as I am. So like you said, my name is Olivia Janssen. I am a new mom. My son, John Sebastian, aka Jack, just turned 1 year old. And
another Sebastian.
Yes.
Sebastian.
Yes. And I think I told you, but his full first name is John Sebastian. We couldn't choose the father-in-law or my dad. So we chose to combine the two names into one, and I think it's perfect. So Jack just turned 1. It's been amazing being a new mom. And I'm also a working mom, and I've been working in the health tech space for going on 8 years now, wearing a lot of different hats. And so, I'm kind of doing it all.
What, if you go check out, and I'll post in, when we do the write-up, I'll post your, all your LinkedIn stuff and things like that. But what in the journey, like from a marketing standpoint and from the space that you're in the healthcare space, what drew you to that? Like, what do you love about it?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you asked that, because honestly, the company that I'm working for today, and the industry as a whole, what really drew me to it was this idea that at the end of the day, I'm helping people. And if I can connect to a brand or a company that has a solid mission that's grounded on this idea that the product or the service is really going to encourage people to have a better life, then honestly, that's something that I want to be part of. And so for the past, again, going on 8 years, that keeps me coming back and feeling hungrier and hungrier to learn more, be more curious about what's going on in the industry, and continue to learn so that, I can really be part of something that I feel is doing good for people and for the world. So
Over the last 8 years, I'm sure like I've seen a lot of changes. It's like a totally, especially in the marketing world, like in the healthcare, probably too, it is with a lot of the eminent, like what we talk about a lot, because we have similar, relationships in the industry with our clients and with some of the folks that you've worked with.
mm-hmm.
Change seems like it's happening at light speed, especially like over the last decade. I know from my standpoint, marketing has changed a ton, but our two clients have gone through two acquisitions during that time. So when you started 8 years ago versus where you're sitting now and what you're seeing, like where marketing and the healthcare space kind of converge, because this is a lot of the conversations that we have. What changed the most, and then what do you see like over the next decade? What do you see the changes happening, particular to your world, good, bad, or indifferent?
I mean, I think like one thing that comes to mind immediately for me, and this is very specific to the space that I work in, but just like the brick and mortar pharmacy space in general. If you go back like even 5 years ago, it looked very different than it does today. And I think unfortunately / fortunately, the reality of brick and mortar pharmacy is that you see a lot more stores closing, right? I think earlier in the beginning of this year, we saw that, Walgreens, for example, was closing hundreds of their locations. And I think that's because people are looking for ways to get their prescriptions delivered to their home, for example, as opposed to going to a brick and mortar pharmacy. And so, we're seeing changes there. And I think that, we kind of have to think about like, how do we redevelop those spaces? How do we think about the patient experience and make it a more optimal experience for them so that they're not, standing in a pharmacy waiting 20 minutes for their scripts, right? People have less time, less patience. And so we kind of just have to rethink about that. That's just one of many examples that comes to mind.
When you see like going forward in your space, how does it apply to you and like the learning and skill set? And I want to frame this out from the standpoint of, as I said, as we were talking about, like kind of before the call, I've done 46 of these now. You'll be number 46. And more than half of them have been females, and the journey in how they're kind of navigating through their professional lives in all phases of life. You have women that are moms and have kids in college, like that we met, like clients and things like that. How is it for you right now? Like if you took a snapshot in time for a young working mom in the day and age we live in, and you have a unique perspective on this, and I'll get to it in a second, because when we met, you were like, there's a lot of moms that are kind of like stepping out of the workforce to like be full-time moms. And one of the things that really intrigued me about you was kind of like your passion and energy for being a mom, having that awesome experience, but also, and like a wife, but also having like that drive and energy. Cause let's face it, like kids are not easy. Like it's there's only X amount I've learned this 3 times over with my wife. There's only X amount of energy. And as you start and you only have one, when you start multiplying kids, it's like, how many basketball games could you possibly fit into a Saturday schedule? It's insane. But where does that balance point happen for you where you've had this transition into motherhood over the last year? You've excelled at that. Obviously, I could tell like you're really loving it and enjoying it. But on the other side of it, how do you keep that passion and energy for what you do? Like, and I'm asking this because I've asked it 50 times to 50 different women. And I'm like, I don't know how you guys do it. Being a mom is totally different than being a dad, and also having a business or having a career. So how have you managed to do that, especially through the first year with your first kid, because it's a big transition?
Yeah. I mean, and so I was just actually talking to my husband, Alex, about this, and it's a really good question. So kind of like rewind back to just about a year ago when I had Jack, and I had about 3 months at home with him, and that was an incredible experience and a very challenging experience. Just transparently, I definitely dealt with some pretty strong postpartum, as I think a lot of women do. I come from a belief that a lot of women deal with postpartum, but it's just various degrees and levels. And so, as much as I loved and enjoyed that time, it also was sort of a time of reflection. And I thought about who I was as a person. And, at the end of the day, like really reminding myself that, yes, I'm a mom, but I'm also a career woman. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm a daughter, right? There's so many other components to my life. And so after that 3 months of maternity leave was done, getting back into work and having conversations with people, it really helped to reinforce that reminder of the other dimensions to my life and the other dimensions to who I was. And I really quickly realized that I could be the absolute best mom to my son, Jack, and the best wife to Alex if I took care of myself. And for me, that meant getting back to work. That meant using my brain in ways that made me feel good, which is researching and looking at news and knowing what's going on in the world. And so for me personally, going back to work and focusing on kind of finding other pieces of myself really helped me to be a better mom and a better wife. So the balance kind of happened organically and by just kind of tuning into, what really made me feel whole.
Second part of that question, which I always try to ask, in the last year versus the previous 7 for you, have your goals shifted? Like, do you have, and I would imagine I know the answer, but have your goals shifted now that you are a mom? Like, it's that balancing act, or have they stayed similar to what you were just saying about like being the best version of yourself means taking care of yourself, and how do you like leverage those within the new world that you're living in right now, and have those goals change? Like for me, over my 18-year journey, the goals that I had, I always joked that I was going to do this for 20 years and then I was done, just because that's what I felt when I started this at 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And there's parts of me that feel that way, but the goals that I had, again, maybe it was out of naivety when I was 30 years old and didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I feel like my goals have changed as I've evolved as a husband, as a father, as a boss, or like a CEO of somebody running the company. Because when I started 18 years ago, it was just me and a front porch. And so it's easy when it's just you, but then you have lives that come in under you that you're responsible for, not only paying their salaries, but like the journey for me has been unique because you know, the in terms of like the corporate structure, the top 8 people or the top 6 people that are at DSM in terms of a longevity standpoint, I think the least amount of seniority is like 7.5 years. So we've been together a long time, and we've been through weddings, we've been through babies, we've been through buying houses. Like, when you have responsibility to those people, and then their responsibilities are kind of like expanding and multiplying and whatever, the goals that I have now, like when it was just me, I was like, yeah, I'm going to like build a $50 million agency in 10 years and it'll be great and like whatever. And then when you go through the wars and you see what it's actually like I never want to be 50 people. I probably never want to be 20 people again.
Yeah.
And I feel like where we're at like 15, 16 people is really, it fits me. It fits my management style of being like one of the biggest premises for me when I started this work-life balance, was having that like ability to not have to travel all the time. Like, I still have to travel a little bit, but like not have to travel all the time, be there for dinner, be able to coach my kids, even before my kids, be able to coach kids playing football. Those were like, I guess, tertiary goals in this. Obviously building the business and you know, like if you're going to do it, like do it the best you can and be successful. But I think the definition of success for me, now that I finished coaching football with my son, and those definitions have changed. Like, I don't want to be a $50 million agency. I don't want to be a $20 million agency. I want to provide for my family and provide a good living for others, and like do good work and provide a platform for people to be able to hone their craft and do really good work. And to your point, be able to learn and be able to, you know, provide a good product, all while, wow, like you could pick up your kid from daycare, or you can be home for dinner with your, you know, like with Dan last week, went over to Dan, had dinner with him and his wife and his 2 daughters. And, you know, at the end, like before I had to leave to pick up my son from basketball, like read the girls a book before they went to, like, that to me is priceless. So for you, as you're going through it, like have your goals shifted from where they were 8 years ago when you were just like a professional woman?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing, I'll answer your question, but one thing I just wanted to say that just reminded me, like being able to go to dinner or read your daughters a book, right? Like, it's so awesome when you can do that and you can actually like be present too, right? And it sounds like you having DSM and creating a space that really works for you and an environment that really works for you allows you to be present in those moments. And so that's huge. And I think that, you know, that's what everyone's kind of like clawing after. But when you actually get there, I think that that's a really, really good feeling. But
it's funny you say that too, not to interrupt, but it's funny you say that, because I think that one of my biggest weaknesses is actually, as the leader of the company, I'm always trying to grow it and expand it. But on the other side of it, when you actually speak it out into the world and you like what I just said and how you just said it, you're like, wow, like I actually did what I set out to do.
yeah.
And I don't usually see it that way. I'm always like, oh, this is bad and this is bad and I got to do this and this needs improvement. When you actually say it, again, when we first met, I think it was an inflection point moment for me, finishing up coaching, you know, football for 6 years with my son. And I got to a point where it was like, I set a goal when I started this and I completed it. But then on the other side of it, the dark side of me is like, all right, what's next? There's always that's what's next. And the what's next isn't always, maybe sometimes you don't need a what's next right now. And you should just enjoy the accomplishment that you did.
Yes.
And that's where I'm curious for you as to the goals. That's why I asked the question, because this is the constant, like, angel and devil on my shoulder, like in my ear, like all the time.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, so I'll start by answering your question. So yes, my goals have changed. But to be completely honest, I think they've changed in a way that I didn't expect, which is, now being a mom, when it comes to my career, I actually oddly feel more, more bold and more confident in making sort of, or just taking risks, right? Like, and I think a lot of that, like right now, I'm staring at a picture of my son, Jack, and it's on my desk. It sits on my desk. And when I work every day, I look at that picture and seeing Jack, it inspires me and it makes me feel like my goals can be so much bigger than maybe what I once thought they could be. And he inspires me to take risks. And I've found myself feeling more confident and more capable of embracing more challenging things. And I think probably a lot of women and moms who have gone through childbirth, especially, it's like, wow, I never thought I was that strong before. And so it gives you this like new, I don't know, this new dimension to who you are. And so for me, that's been applied to how I work and the risks that I've been willing to make in my career. So, yes, my goals have changed. And I think just very simply, I'm open to taking bigger risks these days.
That well, it's interesting because you don't hear that from, like, I've asked that question again on this. I've done it 46 times. There's probably been 25 to 30 women who have been on the podcast at different stages of their life. And I can honestly say it's a different viewpoint every time I speak to someone new, because the way you framed it out and where you're at, I mean, it's interesting. Like literally nobody's been, I get the whole dynamic about childbirth and like strength and the whole thing, and God bless, because I give women all the credit in the world. My wife did it 3 times. My sister-in-laws have done it a combined 5 times. I'm like, I don't know how you guys did. It's crazy. And one of the things that I'll never get, because you have different perspectives from women. My wife, it's funny, like after 3, I was like, we're done. Like no more. Like, we got married a little bit later. We had kids a little bit later. And I was like, no more. My wife was like, I would be pregnant all the time. Like she loves the feeling of being pregnant. And she's been pregnant. And our kids were born in February, in December, and in April. All different times of the year. She's been pregnant through the summer when women are, miserable and hot and the whole thing. And she's like, it's the, I love it. I love being pregnant. I love that feeling. And I've never heard that before, where it's been like, it's made me more bold. It's been woven in the narrative, similar to that, but never being a mom has made me more bold. There's a lot of women are like, that like maternal instinct kicks in. And then you're like, oh, I want to, be with my kids all the time, or some women leave the workforce. So it's a unique perspective. With regard, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think too, like, at least for me, the way I look at it is like, I want someday for Jack to look at me and say like, wow, my mom was fearless and she took risks and she didn't fit within this societal box that people kind of pressured her into. Like she took risks and, sometimes I might fail and that's totally okay, right? I'm a human being. That's going to happen. That's to be expected. But I don't know. I'm just like hungrier than ever to be really bold and to make big moves. And I think that being a mom has given that to me. And yes, would it be like safer and maybe wiser easy role that I could do with my eyes closed, of course, but ultimately, like, what does that do? And so, yeah.
So, so putting this together and sort of wrapping it up with a bow, where does Olivia go from here? I'm curious because as a mom, there's so many to your point about being bold and about, failing, which I love. I struggle with it immensely. You know, when I first started this, like I said, I think we've talked about it a little bit, like failing was really hard, especially I'm not saying this in sort of a I think it's really difficult for men as they're starting things to fail, and failure, this is another part of like the narrative for me as a growth point. Having the responsibilities of running a business and failing, although it will happen, and I've learned it over time, it doesn't matter what you do or how good you are, like the best entrepreneurs fail. Like that's just reality. We're all, to your point about being humans, it's really, really interesting for me to tie in how, like what I've learned over 18 years, like the simple like X's and O's of running a business, but also the mentality of appreciating the wins as you go along. Like I said, I'm not very, but my biggest cheerleader is my wife, and she's great at it. She's like, dude, you need to like stop and just, you've done something and it's good. And I know that you don't think it's good, or you think it could be better. And that's part of why you're doing it.
Right.
But like, just stop and appreciate it for a minute. There's a lot of people who have never gotten to where you are. There's a lot of people who haven't done it as long as you have. There's a lot of people that, have taken easier routes to doing it, instead of bootstrapping it for, 18 years. What's next for you? Like, what do you see in terms of personal and professional, that not only passing the lessons along to Jack, but what's next? Like, how do you tie this all up into the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of back to like one of your initial questions, I think that in terms of career, will always be working with, for, or a part of a mission-based company that is doing something good for people. That's something that, I just connect to, and something that I want to be part of. So, over the next 10 years, I certainly think that will be a massive part of whatever I'm doing. And then really, like, as a mom, continuing to be the best version of myself for my child, and be a great wife, hopefully, as well. And yeah, we'll see what's next. But I think just tying all of those pieces together, I think
this one always gets people, and I could see, like, it's funny, the over preparation side of you. You're like, like I don't know, but like, sometimes it's good to put people on the spot a little bit. Similar to after this today, I got to head down to Union City with Dan to shoot a bunch of videos for DSM, and the guys who are shooting them, they're going to be like promotional cuts for our own social and everything like that. Dan and I are very different. Dan's speaking style, like, Pastor Dan, like he knows how to roll. Like, he can speak in public, and he's very I look up to him in that sense. Cause for me, I'm like, are you prepping? Like, what do we need to do? And he's like, no, just come in. He's like, yeah, we're going to have a set of questions, and we're going to, put you in an environment that, I was like, but he accepts me for what I am in my speaking, and like it's bringing that passion and energy, and
Yes.
you know, not particularly speaking to the marketing side of things per se, but that leadership side of things. And I think that getting an understanding for yourself and putting you on the spot a little bit to say, hey, what's next? Or, hey, you know, what do you see as your strengths and weaknesses? Or, and actually accepting those. Because when I first started, I was like, I'm great at everything. I can do anything. And I still have that mindset of, hey, I can do anything, but I've been able to defer to Dan with regards to speaking to different things where I'm comfortable in my own skin now to do that. When I was younger, I thought I had to have the answer to every single question. And it sometimes it helped me in that entrepreneurial journey, and sometimes me, and those learning from those experiences, I think are extraordinarily important. So kudos to you for what you're doing and how you're doing it. Again, like, to the audience, I've literally known Olivia for a month, maybe like 5 weeks. And in those 5 weeks, I'm like, wow, I've gotten to know her. I'm like super impressed. I've gotten challenged by her, which is great. And we get to like sit down, and the conversations that we have, like, I don't know how you feel about them, but like, I feel like I've known you for 5 years.
I know. I feel the same way. And I have to say, I love that you just sort of called me out on that last question, because in thinking about it, I actually think like just a really solid answer to that is like, I don't actually really know what the next 10 years holds. Because like I don't have a crystal ball, but like I'm just really excited. And to your point, like I'm just ready to bring like the energy and bring my personality and bring my mind to like whatever is out there. But I think yeah, like I don't know exactly what that is. And I just think it's cool that you called me on that. And to your point about like it feels like I've known you for years and years and years. And like even you saying that, it's like it's almost as if like again that we've known each other for a much longer period of time, that we're comfortable enough to say like, come on, like that can't be, you know.
Look, I've had in my life, and again, this is it's interesting because one of the big things for me has always been having really good mentors.
Yeah.
Having a guy like, again, two of them have now passed away, and the reason I started this whole thing, like literally we're 46 episodes in, the reason I started this was to pay off, to never be in a place that I didn't say thank you to a guy like a Kenny Sullivan or a Gary Caton. And I never got to have Kenny on here because he passed away before I started it, but he was the reason I started it. And episode 4 of the series with Gary that I told you about and that you watched, like, there are still days and times where Gary, you know, passed away in 2023 that I watch. I'll just go on and take it in 45 minutes and watch that video just to hear his voice and to just be reminded of like what he passed on to me and the knowledge and all the things that are wildly important that I didn't, when they're here and when you're talking to them, you take it for granted. And this was like an eye opener to never take that for granted. And to be able to have that recording, like, it really is a big part of, I guess the whole part of this. I don't want to get long-winded because I'll get super long-winded and then I'm going to cry and it'll be, but
The gift of Gary. That's what I said to you.
Yeah. It puts you in a place of like recalibrating yourself to always be thankful for what you have. Yeah. And not to think like it's that parallel universe of me pulling that entrepreneurial side. What's next? I haven't done it. It's not great. and having that side of like, every time I record one of these, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, my day is always better. Because there's a element of gratitude that I get to open up myself to when I do this, that other days, like whatever, like I bitch and moan and like, this sucks. And I never getting to do this and getting to start my day, especially on a Monday, like it just, there's a debt of gratitude that I get to pay to you. And hopefully this continue. Like, I'm super excited to continue watching your journey in this short time. I'm like, you're a bundle of energy. Like that's what you bring all the time. And it's awesome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn this over to you. This homage number 46 is in the books. Olivia Janssen, turning it over to you to put the bow. This camera, this camera, this camera, they're all on you.
Okay.
Go ahead, wrap it up. Tell us where we're going to see you. I feel like we're going to see you on The Price is Right in like the next 2 years. This is yours to finish up. Homage is yours. Eternally grateful. Thank you very much for taking the time today in your busy schedule to come on. Turning it over to you. You wrap it up.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's been such a blessing to know you, and I am so incredibly grateful that we connected on LinkedIn and that you, like me, are just an authentic human being who likes to have real human conversations. And I really am so honored to be part of this. And honestly, I hope that people watching this just feel inspired and maybe have even just like a freckle of sort of hope or joy in their day or in their life. And yeah, hopefully everyone has a great day and a wonderful 2025.
There we go. Olivia Janssen, this homage is yours. Thank you very much. DSM out.
Bye.